All right, let's just jump right in. How on earth does a company go from just an idea to a, get this, $6.6 billion valuation in about 2 years? I mean, that's insane, right? Well, today we're going to unpack the wild story of Lovable.dev and this new thing they're calling vibe coding. It all really kicks off with this one simple but honestly pretty profound question. What if the single biggest hurdle to creating software, actually knowing how to code, just vanished? What if you could take an idea, just describe it in plain English, and that was enough to build a real professional app? And this slide, wow, this really lays it all out. It frames the entire revolution we're talking about. So you've got the old way, right? The classic startup grind. We're talking 3 to 6 months of development, 50 grand or more, just to see if your idea has legs. And then you've got the new way, the lovable way, launching in a few days for under $1,000. This isn't just a small step up, it's a completely different universe. So who's the company right at the heart of this massive shift? Yep, it's Lovable.dev. So they're the ones pushing this idea they call vibe coding. And yeah, I know, it sounds a little abstract, maybe a bit out there, but the actual definition is super straightforward. It's really just about using your own words, just talking or typing in natural language to build an entire app, front to back. We're talking the UI, the database, the whole shebang. And this is why it's such a big deal. The goal here isn't to make coding a little bit easier for developers who already know how to code. Nope. It's about empowering a whole new class of people they call builders. Think about it. Product managers, designers, entrepreneurs, people who know their industry inside and out but have never written a line of code. Lovable is basically trying to hand them the keys to build whatever they can dream up. Okay, so how does this magic actually happen? It really comes down to 3 main ways you interact with the system. First up, you've got agent mode. Think of this like having an AI junior developer that works on its own. It writes code, squashes bugs, and even Googles for answers when it gets stuck. Pretty cool. Then there's chat mode. This is where you step in as the boss, the product manager, and you collaborate with the AI, planning out new features together. And finally, my favorite, visual edits. You can literally just click on something in your app and say, hey, make this button blue, or add more space here, and it just does it. No CSS required. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial, especially for the pros out there. This isn't some black box that spits out weird locked-in code you can't touch. No way. The code you get is the real deal. Clean, modern, and built on the exact stack a top-tier dev team would choose. We're talking React 18, TypeScript, Tailwind, all powered by a Supabase backend. And the best part, you own it. It's your code. No vendor lock-in, period. And because of all this, their growth has been, well, explosive doesn't even cover it. It's been like a supernova. Let's just start with this number, $200 million. That's their annual recurring revenue. But here's the kicker. They hit that number in just 12 months, a single year. I mean, that kind of velocity is practically unheard of in the software world. And all of that leads us to the headline number, the big one, a $6.6 billion valuation. Just think about that for a second. That puts them in the same ballpark as established tech giants, but they did it in a tiny fraction of the time. It's just staggering. And this timeline really shows you just how insane that speed is. Look at this. It starts as a popular open source project, GBT Engineer, back in mid-2023. Fast forward to late 2024, and Lovable.dev launches as a real company. And then, in the span of a single year, 2025, they pull in over $500 million in funding and shoot right up to that multi-billion-dollar valuation. It's breathtaking. And you have to look at who's investing. I mean, this isn't just random VC money. It's a who's who of big tech. You've got Google, NVIDIA, Salesforce, Atlassian, HubSpot. The list goes on. These guys aren't just placing a bet on a cool new toy. They're making a strategic investment, betting that Lovable is going to be a core piece of how businesses build software in the future. Okay, so the valuation is massive, but how is this actually being used in the real world and big companies? Because make no mistake, this isn't just for weekend projects. It's being picked up as a serious tool for the enterprise. I mean, just listen to this quote from a senior director at Zendesk. They said, "We compressed the time from idea to working prototype from 6 weeks to just 3 hours. 6 weeks down to 3 hours. That's not just an improvement, that fundamentally changes the DNA of how a company can innovate." And what about the bottom line? Well, here's a great example. There was a startup paying $40,000 a year for Salesforce. They used Lovable to build their own custom CRM, perfectly suited to them, for $1,200. That's a massive, massive difference. That's what disruption looks like in a spreadsheet. Of course, if you're a big company, the first thing you're thinking is security and compliance. And Lovable knew they had to nail this, so they've gone and gotten all the enterprise-grade certifications. SOC 2, ISO, they've got the single sign-on you'd expect. But most importantly, and this is a big one, they have a hard and fast rule that your code is your code. They never, ever use customer code to train their models.
But here's the thing. Lovable isn't operating in a vacuum. This whole idea has sparked a new battlefield, really, for the future of building software.
And this table gives you a really good lay of the land. You've got Lovable, which seems to be the best for these really polished, design-focused apps. Then you've got competitors like Bolt.new, which is all about raw speed for prototyping. Base 44 is aiming for super simple internal tools with its magic wand feature. And then you have something like Cursor, which isn't for non-coders at all. It's an AI-powered tool built to make professional developers even faster. So everyone's carving out their own niche. So with all this incredible momentum, where does it go from here? And maybe more importantly, what are the roadblocks they still have to get past? Yeah, because it's definitely not a perfect solve-everything solution, at least not yet. A lot of people in this space talk about what they call the last 10% problem. You know, that final super tricky part of a project, the complex logic, the pixel-perfect polish, that still often needs a human developer to get it over the finish line. So what does that look like in practice? Well, for one, the AI can sometimes get lost or lose context in really big, complex apps. There's also this sort of technical cliff where a non-coder might know what they want, but they don't know the technical words to describe it. And a really big one for a lot of people, right now, it doesn't do native mobile apps. No React Native, no Swift, it's web only for now. But their vision for the future is, well, it's huge. The goal for 2030 is to basically solve all those problems. They want to get to a point where a single person has the creative and technical power of what used to be a whole product team. Designers, engineers, PMs, all rolled into one. And that really brings us to the final question, and it's what I want to leave with you. For decades, the power to build software was held by a relatively small group of people who knew the code. But if that wall truly comes down, if anyone with a great idea can now bring it to life, what would you build?